no longer required it. Annaline watched as she and Ben approached, some looking at them, some looking up. They know it, she thought, breath catching in her throat. They know we're alone. You're not alone, Ben said. In the sandy indentation a dozen meters away, Plug-Eye rose. Others stood too, watchful of their leader. Unconsciously, Annaline slipped her right hand from the handlebar and felt for the blaster, holstered at her hip. Don't had to be punished. Even hunted, even terrified, the Tuscans would exact revenge. "Ayark!" a warrior said. "Look!" Ayark looked between the humans and recognized the limp form on the vehicle. A Dean. Speeder bike and knelt over it, while the other warrior stood behind. Annaline watched as the hated marauder examined the body. Something was off. The crease of the cloth, the shape of the kneeling figure. But mostly, the way Plug-Eye touched the face of the dead youth. "She's a female," Annaline whispered to Ben. "She's his mother." Ayark looked up at the sound of the air-shaper's voice and howled. Who cares if the settlers here? Fury charged through Ayark's tired limbs. Many foolish warriors had died this day, but Adine had acted as a Tuscan. Ayark bellowed and lifted her son's Gaddafi. Behind her, the others raised their rifles. The air shaper had caused this. Her existence had compelled Ayark to lead her people into this great massacre. Who cares if the air shaper has a blaster or great powers? She will pay! Before Ayark could take another step, Hairy Face darted in front of the air shaper, his brown robe parting as he moved. Metal flashed at the human's waist, catching the afternoon suns. A weapon, no matter, he added ominously. While you can. Ayark looked down at the Gaddafi stick in her hands. It had belonged to her father, and it had not saved him, nor had it saved her son. It was right to plunge its point into humans, to crush them with its bulk, to grind their bones with its flanges. Hairy Face, Ben, might have the power to kill her. She would die, but the others would live, and they would exact a price. But then, Ayark thought again of the magic weapon the man carried, and the last time she had seen one. She wanted to know more, but knowledge could not come from a dead wizard. And if the human cheers over the ridge meant the rest of the band was gone, then Ayark and the survivors could not linger. Ayark turned back to Adine. Handing her Gaddafi to another, she heaved the corpse from the ground. We depart, and you depart, Ayark said, while you can. Back. The boy was really growing up. He joined the applause. That's it, folks, he said, stepping into the crowd. First the racers tried to ruin our good time, and then the Tuscans. Let's get got in place. Ayark silently built a solitary bier for a boy who had been warrior for less than a week. No descendants would join his tower, but his spirit would last as long as the stones of his resting place did. Ayark chose carefully. It was the work of a mother. Ayark was that, and a warrior as well. The traditional divided roles of the past were a luxury the clan could not afford. There simply weren't enough to fill them. All had changed after a single dread day 14 cycles earlier. Today's losses had been bad, but they were nothing compared with what had happened the day the clan battled the Huts. The day Sharad Het died. Ayark stopped sorting and wondered. It was safe now to pause and reflect. As safe as it was going to get. She thought about Ben's weapon and visualized the owner of the other she'd seen. Sharad Het was the Ultman, the outlander of local legend. But to Ayark, he was a real being. He was in fact family, because of a different human Ayark had met first, Kishik. Ayark had been born as Kiyark, the youngest of 6 children. When 3 of her siblings died from plague, her father Yark repopulated his household through a time-honored practice. abduction. Kishik, so named by the Tuscans who kidnapped her from a local settlement, was nearly an adult when she came to live with Ayark's family. Ayark, still a child, was granted the privilege, too often a chore, of bestowing on Kishik the ways and words of the Tuscans. In so doing, Ayark learned some of the soulless breathings the settlers called words. She remembered them well, evidently, as the one called Ben had understood her today. Kishik had spoken many human words, most of them sad. Over time, Ayark realized her new sister had been living as a slave of the humans. Life with the Tuscans was not freedom, because the Tuscans were not free, bound and cursed as they were to inhabit the blasted lands. To Kishik, pale and miserable, it was almost more horrible than death. Ayark often expected her to vanish into the wind. But as a long chain of Tuscan torturers had found, where humans were concerned, fragile bodies often contained durable spirits. Yark allowed both Ayark and Kishik to learn the ways of the warriors. He had assumed, correctly, that Kishik would learn their ways faster, and had defended his daughters against all criticism. "There will come a day when all must fight," he had told the elders. "We are too few." While Kishik learned the Tuscan words, both sisters learned combat. Ayark saw that humans had great potential, as Kishik's talent continually amazed. But something more startling was to come over the horizon from the cities and into the Tuscan camp. A volunteer. Sharad Het had ventured willingly into the wastes, bent on suicide, or rather, on joining the Tuscans, which was much the same thing. A settler taken by force could enter the tribe, as Kishik had, but there was an important difference. The Tuscans had chosen Kishik. Sharad Het had presumed much, and had to be broken. Ayark's people certainly tried. But Sharad had survived the punishments and emerged stronger. The elders whispered he had been part of some ancient and foreign army suffused with powers from angry spirits. And Sharad carried a great and magical weapon, something no common settler carried. A shining green blade of energy. In time, Sharad earned the garb and Gaderfi of a Tuscan, showing his face to the sky for the last time. He took fellow human Kishik as his mate, a match not of convenience. They had a son, a Sharad. But Kishik had not lived to see their child grow. Might against the enemy was one thing, but Tatooine posed threats of its own. Not long after her son's birth, Kishik disappeared into a sandstorm. Vanished into the wind. But Ayark had not grieved over the loss of her sister. The presence of the child had bound Sharad to the Tuscans for life. Freely using the terrible powers and weapon at his disposal, Sharad became a war leader, training his son alongside him. Ayark saw little of the humans in those times. With her permissive father dead, and they lived only because their cowardice had driven them to run the fastest. Of all Sand people, Ayark had no objections to arming the rest of the clan. But even with a rifle placed in the hands of every mother, elder, and youngling, the prospects were poor. The Tuscans didn't train. All experience came from combat. They would die before they learned anything. No, it was pointless to resist. The clan would dissolve, its members drifting into bands where they would have no station or standing.